I'd like to welcome everyone. I'd like to start with the approval of the minutes from the June meeting. Is that correct, Becky? We have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, revisions, suggestions? Hearing none. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'll make a few statements, and I do want to, before we get started, Becky informed me that we will need to adjust the agenda and move the consent agenda up. And the reason we need to move the consent agenda up is that we are approving reorganization plans, governing body plans, and those are due in the courthouse by noon. So we have to get those in the courthouse so that it's a timing issue. So I just wanted to make everyone aware that we are going to adjust the agenda and why we're adjusting it. Since our last meeting, I want to just talk a little bit about what I consider to be the biggest word we've had, and that's results. I think our latest round of assessments indicate that results are up, and over a 3-year period, up significantly. 71% of our students passed both sections of the I-STEP Plus exam. That is a gain of 8% since 2008-2009. And for the first time, we had a section of the test where 80% of the students passed the test, and that was in math. So we had 80, I think it was actually 80%, just a tick over 80% actually passed the math section of the test. When we made that formal announcement, we had a number of schools, and I see Dr. Johnson here from IPS. I know there was an IPS school in there. We had what I refer to as sometimes our frequent flyer. I think it was Ferdinand Elementary that is here all the time on those. I think they were, 99%? Is that right, Alex?
Yes, sir. 99%
pass. And they, by the way, are up about 13%, I think, over couple years, 3 years ago. So it's not that they have been always at that level. So we had a ceremony that I thought was incredible in that we had some comments from teachers. We had some comments from administrators regarding how really their local efforts, and I want to underscore that because in an era where many people want to talk about high-stakes testing and criticize high-stakes testing as teaching to the test, if you really wanted to have that discussion and debate, you could have been in the State House when we made this announcement, because it was the true picture of how local decision-making, local delivery of instruction has driven improved results. And I was incredibly impressed. We had everything from a Montessori school to a project, an inquiry-based learning school, everything you can imagine along the spectrum of how students are taught, how students learn to achieve these gains. And it was very fulfilling to hear teachers say that they were very excited about their jobs. And so in an era where we all live, where the rhetoric has become very sharp about high-stakes testing, I would tell you that if you were in our office on the day we had the announcement, you would have had a much different picture from people who are really doing an excellent job in their classroom, and they were a great example for the rest of our state. So I guess I just restate the thing we said there, that this is the results that I just talked about are a testament to the teachers who are doing a great job in the classroom. They're a testament to the principals that are driving instruction in their classrooms. And I appreciate that. And if you see a teacher or a principal, I think this is a good time to thank him or her, because the hard work of students, teachers, and principals obviously paid off. Switching gears, in the next couple weeks we will announce the results of end-of-course assessments and the results of our A through F school letter grades. And again, that will be a fairly significant announcement. So we are looking forward to that. Also, the last day for retests for iRead 3 were July 27th. Schools will receive their scores by August 10th, and the final statewide numbers will be available in mid-September. So I think what we're talking about is really more than ever results matter. And we are seeing results in Indiana. Measuring performance at the classroom level, at the school level, at the district level, and at the state level is paying dividends. And I think it's, again, we say this all the time, having high expectations and measuring what is important are great drivers for results. So I would say since we met last time, we have had a lot of good news in the department, a lot of good news for Indiana children, more than the department, and a lot of great news for Indiana schools. So I just kind of wanted to pass that on to the board, and I wanted to thank you for your role in that, because this board has made a lot of tough decisions, and you've taken some pretty courageous stances on things that matter, from career and technical education to accountability to expectations. Everything you've done we're really beginning to see the fruits of our efforts. So I just want to compliment the board and again thank you for your work in that. So with that,
let's do the board member comments and then a consent.
Yeah, so do we have any other board member? Yeah, Joe.
I have one question, just a request. If we could put the link to the video stream as part of our minutes. I don't know if that's possible, but it's verbatim that way. And I've had some people ask me about, how do I watch you guys, and just kind of put that in there. And my question is about the A to F. The PL 221 and the charters and the voucher schools, how do they play into what we perceive as our growth model, which is A to F? What is your vision on that?
Well, actually, again, this is a place where I think, Joe, I think we stand in a place here in this state where we're very different than just about any other state in the country, in that a charter school, a public charter school, a school that receives vouchers, they derive their letter grades exactly the same way as our traditional public schools.
That's not clear for all parties involved.
Well, and again, it's when we approve A through F grades, you will be approving universally, and this is one thing that, again, I really commend our General Assembly for doing, because many states across the country have not taken the position that you measure schools that are receiving vouchers or opportunity scholarships or whatever the moniker is. They don't measure them the same way. I know Terry Spradlin's in the back, and I know Terry has studied this. Some states don't measure them at all. Some states only require the students who receive the opportunity scholarship to be tested. In Indiana, if a school receives one voucher, the entire student body must be assessed using the state's assessment, which enables us as a state to use the universal metrics to assess the school. So, Joe, it's probably, in my opinion, it's kind of the gold standard for accountability, universal accountability in the country, because no school that takes the state assessment is really can walk away from the state accountability system in terms of A through F grades.
Okay, because I'm hearing different things about the charters in particular, not the vouchers.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Tony?
I'd just like to say I, a couple weeks ago, attended a workshop of the National Association of State Boards of Education, and it was my first time sort of mingling with our colleagues around the country. And I don't want to say shocked, but I was pleasantly surprised to find that, number one, Indiana is perceived as being at the forefront of sort of education reform in the country. Almost every person that was participating was aware of what you all had done here with this board over the last several years. And although there were people there all across the ideological spectrum, the one thing that was refreshing was that everyone had a high deal of respect for the work of this board as well as the productivity of this board. Just the issues that a lot of the states were grappling with were things that we had gone through a process and resolved. And even if folks disagreed sort of with our outcome, they had a high deal of respect for the pace of engagement and change that we're bringing about here in Indiana. And it was exciting to me, and I just wanted to share that with you all.
Thanks, Tony. Tony shared that with me while I was out of town, and it was refreshing to hear. Anything else? I'd like to, again, thank you for your work. I think, again, to echo Tony's point, I think our children are seeing the results of your work. Thank you. You want to move to the consent agenda?
Please.
Now, are we going to do the whole consent agenda? Do you want to go ahead and do the whole thing?
We might as well, since
Sure.
it's all by one vote.
Okay.
We have freeway school petitions, which you,
No, we're going to do board comments first.
yep, sorry. We have freeway school petitions. We've seen those regularly on the board agenda. There are quite a number of them this time. Governing body selection plan changes, a number of these are to comply with the statutory changes. There were two State Board of Ed hearings to which there have been no objections. One was dismissed at the petitioner's request. The other, the hearing examiner has recommended a default judgment against the petitioner for failing to show up at the hearing. We've got a request that you identify the February count date, the spring date. You know, we have a second count date this year, informational only. We're asking that you set that date as February the 15th. The other is approval of common school loan fund reserves. Of the unreserved amount from the balance, we're asking that you approve a $50 million set aside in equal shares, $25 million for construction loans, $25 million for technology loans. And that would be the consent agenda.
So on the ADM, all we're simply doing is establishing the date of February 15th
Yes.
for the second thing. And I think, just for clarification, the confusion, that will not impact the finances of the 212-213 school year.
That's correct.
So the ADM count that takes place February 15th, 2013 will not impact the finances of the school corporation for the 212.
That's correct.
For the upcoming school year, correct.
And since we're on a fiscal year, would that be all of 13?
Now, Mike, I think, and maybe it would be helpful if we had either Chairman Espic or Chairman Henley here. I'm trying to rebuild this in my mind. And let me see if I have this correct, and I might even pick on Julie here a little bit with the ISBA. My understanding was that the February count date would take effect for the July payment, the July 13th payment. So it wouldn't be, I don't want to mislead you. My understanding is the February 13th drives the July 1 payment.
So it does impact one half of our fiscal year.
General Assembly hasn't decided.
That's right. They haven't decided yet.
I know that was one, so maybe that was just a model, Mike, but I know one of the discussions was that the September count date would drive your January to July payment, and your February count date would drive your July to December payment. Now, Julie is saying
That was how it was introduced.
Yes.
That was taken out.
Okay.
That was taken out.
Yeah, so there's really no decision, we just have to count.
Right.
So okaying the count date really doesn't have any impact on the fiscal situations of schools as of right now until General Assembly gets in there for any of the 13 fiscal year, which is January 1 to December 31st.
Well, yeah.
Either way? You don't know either way.
We don't know.
The legislature could say it will take effect or it won't have effect.
But today, it does not.
At this point in time,
There's no
Just
authority.
said count them on in February.
Pardon?
At this point in time, the legislation just said count them on February.
Info only right now.
That's what I thought it was
We won't know
involved, and I
until
asked
the next
a
general assembly
question.
is over what they're going to do with that number. This one. I mean, it may take effect in July, it may take effect next year.
But you can't give Mike comfort that it won't be used. The legislature may decide it will be used for the second half of the fiscal.
For the second half of 2013.
Just at the moment, it's not.
We don't know.
And I know that one of the discussions that's taken place, and we've made this comment here, and I know Steve's going to talk about it in a little bit. We are pushing for early graduations of kids, and we're encouraging that. But I'm just saying, and the example is me being a small district, about 8% of my kids graduated at semester. And if we do that, then I'm going to be penalized because I'm going to lose 8% of my seniors for second half count. And I guess I'm only making that comment is because I'd like, and I have made that comment to legislators. Tony was there the day that we did it up in Fort Wayne. So, but I guess I just wanted to say it here, that we have to be careful not to make a broad brush statement that count date's gonna, there has to be something in that count date.
Mike, let me also say, I think this discussion that you brought up, and I know Steve's going to talk about during comments, is one that I think as we look at how we take a look at school funding, I agree that, this is an issue that if school districts, if schools are successful in that early graduation, I think we should be looking at that in the funding in terms of potential incentives for schools doing well as we think about how we maybe put performance-based incentives in the formula.
Well,
Okay, I'm sorry.
to give Mike comfort, we're not doing anything other than following the legislative mandate that we're supposed to establish a count date.
Right.
So with that clarification, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Go ahead.
I have a question, but I'll second it too.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, and then a question.
On the what are we calling that? Governing body selection changes. As we go through those changes, I don't know if it's relative, but it concerns me where we are in the growth model in PL 221 as it relates to corporations deciding to redistrict or redraw boundaries. And historically, when they do that, it has pushed PL 221 back to 0. So those 6 cumulative years or 4 or whatever it is go away. And I think it's critical we talk about that, or we get some direction eventually. Not maybe under this topic, but when I saw the heading, it brought that to mind.
Let me, and Joe may not, so if I don't answer your question, be sure to say that's not the question you were asking. I'm going to kind of give you the tale of 2 different scenarios. I'm going to use 2 different scenarios that will give you, I think, answer your question. And this has to do with district level governance. I think it's New Harmony and North Posey. What we might call, they consolidated. Yet it's not really, it wasn't a consolidation, it was North Posey annexing New Harmony. Okay? Their school numbers didn't change, their corporation number didn't change, because they were not redesigning their governing body. They were not doing anything any differently except North Posey was taking in a group of students. So their accountability metrics are staying constant.
Right.
Okay? In the case of Turkey Run and Rockville, I think that's going to be a true consolidation, and there will be a new configuration of the board. And there will be a new configuration of the district.
Her question, though, is does that relieve them of the accountability rule?
Now, David, it used to you be able to get a kind of a based on the number or the percentage of your students. And so when John Guevara comes down and we talk about accountability, I want to hold that question because I think unless we're totally closing a school, I think we have for the last 3 years, avoided any resets?
Sure. I asked that specific to South Bend. 6 years ago, they did redraw, and we have a 12-year history that was taking them in a different direction, but they started over, and for the kids' sake, it is not helpful.
No, I think in the last 3 years, we have avoided any resets unless the school actually closed like a
And this
Harding.
would be a little different. I think Elkhart might fall in this too, but they had consent decrees. So I'm not talking about annexation and consolidation as much as I'm talking about actual redrawing of boundaries and what PL 221 drives us
Okay.
to do under those circumstances.
I will, when John gets here, we'll bring that.
Thank you.
Yep.
May I clarify then that
Sure.
we're voting to approve the legal actions taken by these boards?
Right.
Right.
To simply reconstitute consistent with the statute, and we're not affirming any resets or
Right.
any other.
That's correct. We have a motion and a second already. Any further questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So do we have the spotlight now, Becky?
Yes, we do, and Candace Dodson is going to introduce our presenters today.
Good morning, members of the board. Dr. Bennett. I am Candace Dodson, the Director of E-Learning, and this morning it is my pleasure to bring to your attention one of our most innovative and strategic school districts who are doing wonderful things around learning, and especially in the implementation of technology in the learning, and they are definitely getting results like Dr. Bennett talked about earlier. So I want to introduce to you the superintendent, Richard Arkanoff, who will then talk about what's going on and introduce their technology director.
Thank you very much, members of the board, and Dr. Bennett, thank you for this opportunity to spotlight Center Grove and the wonderful things that we're doing there. Through a grant, the Innovations Grant through the Indiana Department of Education, we were able to secure funds to put together an incredible program that benefits kindergarten students using technology. And this model has become somewhat nationally recognized recently at the ISTE conference in San Diego, California. Our Director of Technology, Julie Bowenkamp, has done wonderful things, and I'm going to turn that over to her and let her give a nice presentation on what we've been doing with the Innovation Grant money. Thank you. You have great security. You've logged in.
Oh, no, it's, believe me, it's not your fault.
You've got to take Bonnie's name out of there, Alex. That's her personal needs. Is it guest?
Who's going to guess for a second here?
I'm out of ideas.
Alex, log in as you.
We'll lose the presentation.
So that's such a good idea. Becky, while we're waiting, do we want to talk about, want to bring, do the future meeting dates, talk about the email addresses?
Sure, we can do that. Just a reminder about the future meeting dates. We have a second meeting in August rather than a meeting in September, and we have 2 meetings scheduled in October. The regular meeting, the first Wednesday, and then at the end of the month, I think it's on Halloween, actually, because Mike thought we all ought to come costumed. And that will replace the November meeting. So we've got that. We also, you'll be getting a memo about email addresses. With the recent public access counselor opinion, we have some concerns that perhaps board members should have official DOE email addresses to conduct for any sort of State Board Business, that's the email address we would post on the website, but we're working on that, and just to let you know that that is coming, but I won't have any more details till the August 30th meeting.
Thinking behind that as it relates to like intellectual property and access.
Okay, we can do that. So we took care of that one, thank you. And we're ready to go. Julie?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to share with us what Dr. Bennett discussed as results, and we're going to give you a little bit of feedback on how we get to those results. We actually have some data to show and some really innovative practices that our teachers are doing with the iPad project that we're implementing. Behind you, you see some of the funding that we've received and the activities that we have participated in. We have been successful in obtaining some of the grant money that you've provided for us, and especially the innovation grant recently. Our main premise is that creativity is thinking up new things, but innovation is doing new things. And so our goal is to ensure that technology is utilized in ways that we preconceivably could not have done it otherwise. And so taking technology, not just for technology's sake, but utilizing technology in ways that teachers could not have constructed their classrooms before the use of the technology. We had 3 goals for our project. The first goal was to really differentiate the classroom. And so with the kindergarten iPad project, we immediately worked with the teachers to develop the iPad as a personal digital assistant. And so the iPad was configured specifically for that student in that particular instance. And when we wrote the grant, we decided to really use that iPad as a way to empower the teacher to meet the child exactly where they are. Another goal was to develop a highly engaging literacy program, and so this funding allowed us to launch a digital library for our entire community with downloadable ebooks. We're up to about 2,500 downloadable ebooks and audiobooks, and our community also has subscriptions. As well as all our teachers have iPads, and we want to be fiscally responsible, and so the goal is to do away with most of our printing and have paperless meetings and paperless classrooms. We started out with our iPad project for the funding with targeting specific student populations instead of just a generalized one-to-one. And the reason for that is so that we could really customize our professional development. And so when we launched Kindergarten iPad project, we worked specifically with kindergarten. And then when we launched the ENL project, again, it's specifically for ENL. And so this has been a very successful model because if you're rolling it out to all different types of student populations, it's really hard to support those teachers. But because we incrementally rolled out our project, we could really focus and really decide this is the student type and this is how we're going to help them. Right now, this is difficult to read on the screen, but you can see how we've incrementally rolled this. We have our early college program all in iPads now at the high school, the kindergartners, the ENL, high school chemistry and physics. We took advantage of the textbook waiver, and so we specifically, again, worked with physics and chemistry and really worked with those teachers. The Teacher iPad project was the paperless classroom project and the incentive for that. Special education, again, we're specifically looking for how can we assist with autism and for specific handicaps. And then we also worked with administrators, and all of our meetings are paperless. We had the wonderful opportunity to obtain some funding through the state, the $15,000 to host a conference, and it was supposed to be just a local conference, and we ended up having people drive from out of state to this conference. We had 530 participants, and it was very well received. We had people from Ohio and Michigan come and drive and get up at 3 a.m., so we were real excited about that. And this was really powerful because we are now being able to disseminate the information, and our teachers are viewed as professionals because they were all the presenters for this conference. We had 30 simultaneous sessions all on iPad productivity and specific strands for special education, ENL, kindergarten, early learning, and we invited our community. And so our parents came in and got ideas from our teachers on how they can support their children at home. I'm going to take you into I wish I could just bring you to our school district because we're so proud of our teachers, but I'm going to bring you into a classroom of a kindergarten teacher that's really been very successful with the iPad. And it's really beyond a lot of skill and drill. This is, you will see a child empowered with their own learning. On the next slide. You can just click that.
Okay, let's show them a couple other pictures you have on your iPad. In your iPad here, you have some pictures I see, like here's a video actually. What are you doing in this video, Jay?
I am reading a...
Were you reading a
paper.
passage?
Yeah.
And why were you reading this?
To see how I could read.
Right. You were just listening to yourself and seeing how fluently you could read, weren't you? Awesome. See what other pictures we have on your iPad. We also have a picture here. What in the world is that a picture of, Jay?
A hexagon.
And why do you have a picture of a hexagon? What were you doing that day?
I was looking for shapes in the building.
Oh, and you used your camera to take different shapes around the building, didn't you?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Jay. That's fantastic.
We have an entire segment. We hosted an Apple Day, and we had about 75 educators across the state, leaders and technology directors come, and we live streamed into some classrooms, and I just wanted to show you a quick clip of that interview. That wasn't specifically for today, but I thought it was powerful how the children could tell you what they were learning. We're going to the next slide. I'm going to take you into a special education classroom, and in a special education, what we're really finding is that the technology can empower students who really have not been independent before. And again, this is another example.
We bought this holder for the iPad that actually mounts right onto his wheelchair. So he and Jack, another student in wheelchair, have been able to enjoy using an iPad all by themselves. So being able to do things independently is another thing that we really love about our iPads. Luke, can you show them how this app works? This app is Things That Go Together. And as you can see, not only is Luke working on that skill of categorizing things, he's also working on his fine motor skills, and he is really persistent, aren't you, Luke? Can we get that? I'll help you get it over there. Look.
That one will bring tears to your eyes when you watch the whole video, actually, but we have data to back up our projects. So we actually analyzed the kindergarten iPad project, non-iPad classrooms versus iPad classrooms for the first entire semester. And our findings are generalized back on this back screen, but we have the entire details of our research findings on our website if you would like to review those. But what we found is high levels of engagement, high levels of students taking responsibility in the classroom and in the iPads versus the non-iPad classrooms, as well as increased literacy. And the findings were so significant that we put our own money into the project, and in mid-semester we felt like we had to roll it out to the rest of the kindergarten classrooms. And the gap basically closed, and all of our students were doing increasingly better in literacy because of the increased support. And we premise it that it's about all the differentiation and the fact that they're the time on tasks versus the non-iPad classroom. But we're not ever done. I mean, that's what schools do, is we always look for improvement. And so our next set of focuses are increased on student engagement and projects. We're, again, working on digital storytelling. Our kindergarten teachers are developing interactive textbooks with iBook Author. We're adding Apple TVs into the classroom so that the teachers are mobile and they can engage the students in a more effective way with multimedia. And we're continuing our professional development with online collaborative groups, ongoing meetings, time in summer, we've brought them in. We have shared planning, and everything's relevant and time on task. And we put everything on our website. So I invite you to visit the website. We have a lot of the articles from In the News. The WRTV has been out several times. We have some of the journal articles as well as our research findings on that website. We also have our digital e-library that continues to grow, and we participate in getting the word out on that. And I would just like to thank the Department of Education for the opportunity to be here today, and thank you also for the funding, because we are making a difference and we're having data to back up what the project is. Thank you.
Short follow-up before we open up. Please don't go away, because I'm sure we'll have some questions. One of the things that we did with the innovation grant is we said to all of our recipients, we wanted you to be sure you were able to report back results. And that's one of the things that we're doing, is to show that what we were giving funds for, we are actually going to use to kind of inform other districts of what's possible. So this is an example of that and what we did with that grant. So with that, I'm just going to open it up. Go ahead, Joe.
I also have questions. I apologize to the board for that, but that's my personality.
No, it's good.
It helps us all.
I love this. I just do. The curriculum and the PD development. Is some of your money and time going into that? And if it is, did you research what's already out there so we're not having a lot of duplicity? And I'm asking this with a strong heart for virtual learning. What I see is everybody all of a sudden is creating their own, and it sort of is beginning to feel like the wild, wild west. Nothing against what you're doing, but I'm curious, and is the thought that they will be like the pilot for the next set of kindergartners in another corporation who embrace this, or will every corporation develop their own PD and curriculum?
Well, and that's a really good point. When yes, we highly invest in professional development, and in fact, the grant requires you to embed that into your budget. But it's important for the success of the project. And for this particular project, our teachers collaborated together a lot, and they worked behind the scenes. They went really above and beyond. But as far as virtual learning, we did put them into a virtual learning group, and then there are several other national models of professional development for iPads in early learning that we connected with. As far as replicating it, we hope to be one of the leaders, and in fact that conference was a way for us to get the word out. And we have an online collaborative group now of the people that went to that conference, and we post ideas on there, and so they can come back and take a look at what we're doing.
Did you use open source, or did you?
For the online collaborative group, yes. We used a site called coursenetworking.com, and it's all free and all. Yep. And we invited them beforehand, before they came to the conference, and we started getting the word out on ideas before the conference.
Love that. Excellent.
Candace, you were
I was just going to say, those are great questions, and I think the Office of E-Learning and all of us in Department of Ed, we're always looking for ways to connect with others and to work smart. And so I think that this project is a great example of that. But we have 15 regional conferences going on all over the state this summer, where our teachers are able to meet together, network together, and we have people from all over tweeting into those conferences. We try to share through social media. So, and in the area of virtual learning specifically, we're looking at ways that we can kind of crowdsource and work together and choose what's really best for our teachers and students, and not reinventing and not buy into that Wild West mentality. So I think we're doing those things. We really appreciate all of your support in those projects.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Thanks for your work on this.
Next item is the oral argument. As you recall, in the consent agenda, there were 2 adjudications where there were no objections. This was a recommended decision in which there were objections, and so per your policy, both parties, at least I know one party is here to give oral argument. They each have 5 minutes. You have a copy of the recommended decision and the objections, and you have then the opportunity to ask questions, discuss, and make a decision on whether to adopt, reverse, or remand the recommended decision. So Mr. Garrett is here for the School City of Mishawaka, who will start the oral argument.
Good morning. My name is Phil Garrett. I represent School City of Mishawaka. I just have a brief summary of our argument in this matter. Essentially, School City is seeking to receive transfer tuition payments from Fort Wayne Community Schools. This is related to a special facility within the School City, which is known as the Children's Campus. It's located in Mishawaka, Indiana. And what that is it's a year-round residential treatment facility that also provides schooling for the students that are there. We believe that the proposed findings correctly hold at numbers 5 and 6 that the students there are required to attend class on a year-round basis. Class is mandatory. It's essentially an elongated school year, which would include what a normal school year would be for other schools in the corporation, but it also requires that students attend school in the summer months. The issue then becomes whether or not School City is entitled to transfer tuition for the whole school year as well as those summer months. The proposed findings hold that School City is not, and that's specifically because School City certified its instructional days as 180 days. The findings then state that it is limited to transfer tuition just for those days. We believe that that's contrary to the transfer tuition statutes and specifically the definition of a school year found in Title 20. The transfer tuition statutes at 20-2611-13B state that the transferee corporation, which would in this case be School City, is entitled to receive for each school year transfer tuition from the transferor corporation, which is Fort Wayne Community Schools. The issue then becomes what is the definition of a school year and whether or not those summer months are included in the definition of a school year. The findings hold at conclusion number 7 that there is no definition for a school year under the statutes. We believe that that's an error, and to be fair, at the time of the briefing and the hearing on this, I think that both parties as well as the ALJ was unaware that there was actually a definition of a school year, but there is. It's found under Title 20, though not specifically within the transfer tuition section. IC 20-18-2-17 defines a school year as a period beginning after June 30th and up to July 1st of the next year, and by the specific holdings in the statute, that applies to all of Title 20, including the transfer tuition section. Therefore, by definition, School City is making the argument that the school year specifically includes what would be known as a regular school year for most corporations, as well as the specific summer months at the children's campus where students are required to attend. Based on that, we think that we're entitled to transfer tuition based on the statute I previously cited.
Is that it? Any questions for Mr. Garrett?
Is that the same thing as a family children's center?
Yes, that's what it is.
And isn't that registered as a social agency? It's not registered as a school.
There is and I don't have the case for you, a 7th Circuit case from the 1980s which specifically requires Family Children's Center to provide schooling.
I understand, but once we do that, then we're going to be setting some stage for all of the social service agencies, and I'm thinking of Boys Club and Boys and Girls Club and there's substantial agencies in South Bend and Mishawaka.
Well, I think you have to go by the terms of the statute. And by that court case, School City of Mishawaka is required to provide schooling under the statute. The students that are transferred there, School City is entitled to receive transfer tuition. And based on the statute, it's as defined in the school year, which includes summer months.
Any other questions for Mr. Garrett? Okay. Counsel for Fort Wayne. I haven't. Is the attorney for Fort Wayne Community Schools here to argue? Apparently not. So.
Go ahead.
No, Mr. Garrett, just have a seat. We'll. Oral argument, as attorneys will tell you, is just oral argument. It's an attempt to persuade you to their position. It is not evidence. The attorney for Fort Wayne did submit a response to Mishawaka's objections. You have them. Matt, as general counsel, can advise you accordingly as to what action you want to take based on the hearing examiner's recommended decision, which is that, as Mr. Garrett correctly said, she found that the school year was 180 days, so therefore it did not incorporate summer school, the summer school program, and therefore transfer tuition was not available for the costs of the summer school.
We're bound by the record, correct?
Yes, and you cannot.
And we're bound by the fact that the findings in the hearing officer's decision concluded a fact of a 180-day school year.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
I think you're bound by the record unless the law of the state is contrary to the record, which it is in this case. The definition of school year includes more than 180 days as defined by the statute. So if you approve the findings as written, you'll be approving a finding which inaccurately states the statute in this case.
David, one option, Mr. Garrett is correct, that the issue of the school year definition at the time of the hearing was not in play. No one knew that there was the definition that he referred to. One option that the board has, obviously, is to remand for further findings or further hearing on those kinds of issues.
Outside of time, what's the downside of that?
There are many school districts that, to which the definition of a school year are applicable, that don't do anything during the summer months, I assume. So how do we know? Maybe that's Dan's point.
Well, usually it would be defined in this case. It was designated in the school's website in terms of what their school year was, and that was the evidence that was presented, or that was the evidence that was presented as attached to one of the pleadings in the record, and that's what the administrative law judge, to my understanding, made her decision on.
And we're bound by that decision.
You're bound by the record.
I don't think that's a correct statement. You're bound by the record to the extent that it's correct under the definitions of the law. The definition wasn't known at the time of the hearing. So I think if anything, you should at least remand to hear evidence based on the definition of school year.
Is there still some interpretational law going on here?
Well, like seat time, isn't that an issue?
I'm sorry, Joe.
Seat time, as we define that, isn't seat time an issue?
The issue was what the calendar year was, or the number of
Understand,
days.
but is seat time tied to that too?
I don't see that it is.
Okay.
And I have a question. It goes back to Joe's original question. Because I think the question is, while I acknowledge the attorney's assertion that they are required to provide schooling, are they a school?
No.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
I'm sorry. No, they're not. I'm sorry.
They're not?
Right. They're not.
So they are.
Okay.
They're specifically required to provide schooling. So I think in this case, they're a part of School City Corporation, and they are a school in that sense. The teachers there are paid by School City, not by a separate social services company. So it is a school.
Can we call for the question? I'm not sure we're supposed to have,
Sure.
Dave,
No.
are we supposed to have this kind of
Sure.
dialogue, like back and forth?
Yes.
It's like a hearing being reheard.
Matt, is this a historical issue only, or does this have not precedented, does this affect the relationship of the parties going forward? Or are we just talking about money going backwards?
Yeah, I think it would have some precedential value. Yes.
They would be bound.
I think that the department's decision in this case, if they affirm it, would affect these decisions moving forward with respect to the relationship of the parties.
But again, I think that the board has to look to the statutes and the law, not what effect it would have on the relationships of the parties in the future. You're bound by the statutes as they're stated by the Indiana Assembly.
Matt, I'm still confused. If we vote in favor of Fort Wayne for the 2013 summer, does Mishawaka, through this facility, have to provide those services free of charge? Or can they establish a different relationship with Fort Wayne?
I believe that you're right, that they would have to, moving forward, it would essentially establish that relationship.
So the only thing Fort Wayne could do with the students that are placed in Mishawaka is they have to place them there and they have to pay for them. It's in essence a mandate to place and pay.
I believe that's correct.
Or if we don't, it's a mandate on Mishawaka to accept the placement and not pay.
That's how I understand it.
Now, how does it play out when we have special ed children that we have to serve in private schools? I mean, that kind of feels like that where you're going in, because this is, it is an agency. It is not a school. It's more, 20 years ago I worked there. It's more on the counseling side. So I'm just curious, if we do this, are we setting precedent for other agencies out there?
It's not a court-appointed placement.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
The students there are placed pursuant to court order
It can be, not all of them.
or through child services.
Correct.
And it is a school.
Does it have a school number?
I don't know if it does. I don't think it does.
It's part of the
agency
school.
I understand, but if does it have a school number is my question.
I don't know the answer to that.
That's the question.
But the staff there and the teachers are paid by School City.
I understand that, but does it have a school number which makes it a recognized school by the state of Indiana?
They receive transfer tuition payments from Fort Wayne schools for the regular
I just want to know if it has a school number.
I don't know the answer to that.
The record does or does not, I take it does not, but we just ask, it does not reflect whether student A being placed out of Mishawaka and student B being placed out of Fort Wayne, that both those districts would pay the same amount of money to this facility for purposes of summer education as well as during the year education, year-round education. Is it possible that this, if we rule in favor of Mishawaka, that Fort Wayne would be required to pay more to place a student out of Fort Wayne than Mishawaka would be required to place a student out of Mishawaka? Do we know that? Did we know those facts at all?
It's my understanding under the statutes that it is the cost of the student placement incurred by Mishawaka for a Mishawaka student. So if you find for School City, Fort Wayne will be required to pay as required by the transfer tuition for the students that attend that have legal settlement in Fort Wayne Community School Corporation.
Who would order the kids from Fort Wayne to FCC? And why would they go with Basher, and there's so many other similar organizations within Fort Wayne? Who ordered?
That's a decision either made by the juvenile judge or the services department. It's not, that's out of the School City's hands. It's not a decision made by them.
Do we have any further questions? comments? So we have in front of us, we have a recommendation from the ALJ. Do we have a motion to accept the recommendation from the ALJ as written? Hearing none.
Do you wish to remand it
Yeah,
to the ALJ?
You asked one question. I'd like to hear some board members' thought. There's some interesting issues around this. Do we want to remand it back for further exploration of some of these questions, or are we confident where we're at? It seems we're hesitant.
If this was a matter of cash historically, I wouldn't say what I'm about to say, but if this really is going to bind the actions of the parties once the court places a student there in the future, it's an awfully thin record coming at us to make a decision that has that kind of an import. And I personally, I don't have the ability to understand what it is we're doing to the parties if we either affirm or reject based on students that would be placed, money that would follow. There's nothing to tell us the impact of the decision.
And I apologize to keep interrupting. I didn't understand that question when you first asked. Effectively, if you find against school city, you will not receive any transfer tuition payment for the students from Fort Wayne Community Schools.
My understanding from our counsel is that you won't receive that looking backwards, and you won't receive it looking forwards.
That is correct. If you find
It's
against
the
us.
looking forwards that I'm concerned about, both for you and for Wayne, because we're in essence saying here's what you have to do in the future. But I don't understand why, other than the record doesn't reflect the facts that we need to decide. So I'll move to remand.
That's what I was thinking.
So we have
Thank
a
you.
motion to remand. We have a second. Do we have any further discussion?
May I clarify, David, that the motion is to remand for further development of the record and the underlying facts? Does that capture what you want to be done on remand?
Well, I think the remand would be help me, don't have full remand, both law and facts.
Okay.
Not just a narrow question of law.
All right.
The board can determine from a better record what the effect would be.
Okay.
There seems to be, we need this.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments.
We have one person signed up for public comment, Steve Baker.
I appreciate you giving me the chance to talk about this today. You've already talked a little bit about it, so I won't go into a lot of detail. But the legislative session recently did talk about and pass a second ADM count day that's coming up here, and you've set the date for it in February. I think the future on that is a little unknown as far as, is it informational only? In the educational field, we feel it will be tied to finances eventually. That's just kind of the feeling we're receiving, kind of the purpose for that. And we're okay with that. We just want to kind of be proactive as we receive that. Our concern is the area of early grads. And I say this respectfully, I don't think that was maybe taken into consideration, and I understand why, when this was talked about, and now I want to bring it to the State Board of Education now, instead of after it is decided, and then we're arguing it through testimony. So I just want the State Board of Education to consider that aspect of early graduation. We encourage at Bluffton High School, and I know Mike Pettibone does that in Central, I would say throughout the state, we encourage our students to graduate early. Get on with college, work for college. It is a great setup. At Bluffton High School, over 10% of our students take advantage of that every year. That's a lot of students. If financially we are punished for graduating students early, it's not consistent with doing what's best for students. If schools are going to do what's best for students, hopefully the financial incentives will support that as well. So I think all I want to do is bring to the attention of the board is when funding is considered, and I don't know whose decision it will be, legislative, state board, financial, please consider that high schools want students to graduate early, and please don't punish schools for doing the right thing, whether that be through incentives, through funding formulas, or whatever. We just want to be consistent and do what's best for our students. So we just want to bring that before you this morning and say, as you go down that path, please keep that in consideration. And you may think that's kind of a minor thing. It is, but I think it could have major financial impact. If you want to run some numbers very quickly at Bluffton High School, depending on how it goes, it could impact us $30,000 a year if those students are not counted as our students in the spring.
May I ask you a quick question?
Yes, sir.
Because I'm sure it'll come up and it has already. If you have the student a half a year, you want the full year payment, even though they're half a year. Are you saying you should get the full year? You should get some because they're leaving early, or, I mean, because some people will logically say, well, you educate them half a year,
right?
Figure out how to work your budget,
right? And I understand that, and it also goes back to the.
That isn't to discount what you're saying.
I understand.
just because that's
No.
going to come up. I wonder what your thoughts means. You
No.
have a fairly large percentage.
Right, and I understand, and it goes back to enrolled, which is what, the code says, versus attending. I think that's what's going to come down to. I agree, if they're not there, financial, I think on the financial side, you can make that argument. It's very hard to base a budget, though, on half of a year. We can't, let's just say it's $40,000, we wouldn't do this, but we can't lay a teacher off in the spring and then bring that teacher back in the fall. I'm not saying we would do that, but it's very hard to build a budget on those kind of things.
It's causing you some challenges.
Yeah, exactly. So, but to answer your question, at Bluffton, I can only speak for Bluffton, we still consider those students at Bluffton High School. They still attend prom, they still enjoy the benefits of our high school. Now, that may not translate into all those dollars that follow them, but we don't stop services just because they stop in December. We still continue with scholarship, graduation, enrollment in colleges. We're still serving those students. They just may not be in our seats from 7:40 to 2:40.
So there may be a middle point, too.
Maybe a middle point, but yeah, any reduction in finances, though.
So they would still, like your college counseling services?
Absolutely.
Getting letters of recommendations from senior teachers and all, they're still
Absolutely.
interacting and involved, yeah.
Absolutely. We still service them.
All right. Thank you. I just wanted to ask you.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
thanks for taking the time.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, I believe we're ready for our discussion section, starting with the update on school interventions. And Jim? And Jackie? We can move the podium out of the way, too.
So good morning, everyone. We're going to today just have our turnaround school operators provide a brief update. We're sort of at a kind of an in-between place right now. We have finished up our transitional year, and we are on the verge, as early as this upcoming Monday, of opening the schools for operation. And so today's update will be a brief one. It will be verbal in nature. We have not asked our turnaround school operators to provide a PowerPoint presentation. We will start doing that in our next meeting, where we'll start to look at student and school level data that we'll be tracking throughout the intervention to guide our discussions as we look at our monthly updates and our progress to date. So you'll hear brief presentations from them on key areas for the opening of school, of course, enrollment, staffing, curricular and co-curricular programs, and then have time for questions. And I'll let Jackie say a few things about the reports that you all have been sent already pertaining to each of the operators' respective community engagement work.
I've had a really great time these past few months interacting with our community partners and our parents and our turnaround school operators on the community engagement piece. That work will now morph off into something else because they have the keys, and the exciting part is we're going to start school here in the next couple of weeks or so for everybody. So going forward, the community engagement reports will be embedded in your overall operational reports, so they won't be standalone anymore. And then what I plan to do is then move toward a working relationship with our community partners going forward and our parents, just to make sure to keep an ear to the ground on what's happening with everyone. everybody, and then providing an assist to our turnaround school operators wherever they need me on community engagement. If that's intervening with some of our community partners, meeting with them to help our turnaround school operators out, we'll be doing that going forward. I want to just let you know that we've been visiting schools leading up to the first day of school, and we're seeing some very exciting activity at our schools. Amid the challenges still that persist with our turnaround school operators with some of our building stuff, there's excitement. We went into Manual High School yesterday, and there's teachers all over the place running around with bins and charts and all the stuff that they're doing to prepare their classrooms, and they're just as excited as the parents are that are coming into these buildings, and the students that are coming in. As they're coming in, and as I see parents coming in and out of the buildings, I stop those parents to find out how they're feeling about things, how the students are feeling, and there is genuine excitement around what's happening with the school. So it's very nice to see. And these new sparkling teachers and these classrooms all freshened up and ready to go. It's very, very exciting. You'll be excited if you can get a chance to go and see some of that yourself. I think it's very encouraging. And I've gone to some events, some pep rallies. I haven't been to a pep rally since 1976, so this has been really good to go to some pep rallies. I went to one at Roosevelt High School with Edison Learning. I swear that the temperature in that gym had to be 300 degrees, but we were in there. The drum line came out and did their thing, and all the parents were on their feet, and the principal was trying to find out who the oldest alumni was in the gym, and it was just really, really great to see the coaches come out and some of the kids with their jerseys on. They're ready to start school, and they're ready to go. It was very exciting to see that. And of course, we went to one at Arlington, and the superintendent was able to join us there at Arlington for that one, and it was really neat too. Parents were really glad to see the superintendent there, and just the excitement around that school, the opening, the alumni that were there. I think we're seeing some really great stuff. And then of course, Charter Schools USA had their pep rally here just a few weeks ago, and that was also exciting. Just the mascot and the gym was really beautiful. I think there's some genuine excitement with the kids, with the parents, what's going on with it. Of course, we're still ironing out some little things, but genuinely excited about the opening of these schools. So it's just really nice to see, and I think you'll be pleased if you can get around to some of these and see what's happening. And I want to echo what Tony said. I was at a conference this weekend in Philadelphia about some strategic planning for some folks, and they are looking at Indiana. Indiana is still the talk of the nation as far as reform, what's happening here. People are still mirroring what we're doing here, talking about our leadership for the nation and what we're doing. So it's just really nice to see and hear that when we go to other places.
So we'll start, again, just with these brief updates with Charter Schools USA, Ed Power, and Edison Learning. They'll just provide, they've been instructed to just provide updates in those key areas that I mentioned earlier, and then have Q&A as you all dictate from there. Sure, Julie.
Good morning. I'm Sherry Hage, Vice President of Education for CSUSA, and Julie Laug, Director of Education Midwest Region, Charter Schools USA. And we just wanted to take a few moments this morning to update you on our progress, where we are, and how excited we are, as Jackie and Jim mentioned, to be opening school this coming Monday at Howe, Manual, and Donnan. So briefly, I want to give you an update on enrollment, staffing, educational programs, where we are, what's been going on in the last couple of weeks at these schools. So enrollment update, we'll just move through how. We have about 365 students completely done with their enrollment, registration, scheduling, ready to go. We have another couple of hundred students that are still in process, which means they have come out to the school. They have completed some of their paperwork. They are continuing to work through the scheduling process once we've received their transcript. So all in all, for TC Howe right now, we're sitting around 735 students. Emma Donnan, We have about 150, 60 students who have completed the entire registration process.
What grade is that? Grades is that?
Donnan, 7A. We have another several hundred that are in process, which means they've reached out to the school, they've started the process, but they have not completed that final piece of paperwork. So our total, right now, we're sitting around 506 for Donnan. Manual, we have about 355 students that have completed the entire process. Again, scheduling, paperwork. We have another approximately a couple of hundred students that have started that process, come out to the school. We're still working with them. So we're looking at manual being around 550 as of today that we're working with. Hiring in terms of the staff at TC Howe, we're about 85% complete with the staffing. Yes, we only have a couple of days left, but there are things like we still need a curriculum resource teacher. That's not a classroom teacher, that's an instructional support position, a reading specialist, and a vocational teacher. So that's kind of where we are with Howe. Donnan, we're about 90% complete. Again, we have the reading specialist position still open. We have a nurse position still open, but we are very excited to say that we are partnering with Community Health Network, and as of this morning, they are very excited to tell us that they will be providing nursing services for our schools. So we think that position will be filled. Moving into manual staffing, we are about 95% complete there. Again, we needed a nurse, but based on that partnership this morning, we're in pretty good shape. We still need a welding teacher for manual, so that is something that we have really been looking around for. So, and so that's kind of an overview of our enrollment and our staffing. That the staffing is based upon our projected enrollment numbers, so we're very good right now. Based on day one, if we get an influx of students, then we will go back and have to begin to add to that staffing matrix for the school. Looking at events, where we've been, what we've been doing the last couple of weeks, we've held everything from registration events, and the schools have done that a little differently. We did do a kickoff event, letting everyone know the schools are open. We're here for each of the schools. But then in terms of the registration events, Howe did an event where in one day they had over 200 students come out to the school, see where we're headed with the school, fill out and complete their schedules and all of that. They are doing another event on the 9th where they will be doing another open house, and they are doing registration, I believe, today. All day to complete those students that are still processing through. We've done registration. We will be doing open house events for Manual and Donnan on tomorrow, and Howe will be on August 9th. We have also done a lot of professional development. So if we think through what we need to accomplish in these schools, we need our teachers and our leaders to be thoroughly prepared. So we started back in June with what we call our Principals Institute, where we spent a week together learning as leaders and really focused on our strategic plan for moving forward this year. A lot of collaboration, a lot of sharing. We then went into new teacher induction 3 weeks ago, where all of our teachers and at all of our schools here have been in professional development together, talking about building the right culture, talking about classroom management, talking about standards-based grading, and the importance of holding each other and ourselves accountable to reaching the goals that we've set and bringing in great results next year. We did have on the teacher's first day of new teacher induction what we call a summit, which is where over 400 educators sat in one room and were learning together. Todd Whitaker was our speaker. He is the professional who has written things like what great teachers do differently, what great principals do differently. So we spent a lot of time together around professional development on that day. So those are the events. Moving in has been interesting, learning the ins and outs of those buildings, getting things set up, getting the facilities cleaned and classrooms ready, learning where keys are, and all kinds of those facility issues we have worked through. So, Julie, if you want to talk a little bit about marketing, community partnerships.
Yep, but I just want to say also on the events, I believe it's September 22nd is the big game
It
between
is.
Howe and Manual. So, and that's a Saturday. So if you're not doing anything, we'd love to have you out there to see. We're going to be totally neutral on who wins. It's all good.
Win.
We're going to win either way. You're right. That's exactly right. Anyone want to place bets? Who's going to win? We are. That's exactly right. That's a great way to look at it. In the area of marketing, as you know, our messaging, we have the message of this is our school, make it your school. This is my school, make it your school too, which I think is a great message. And you will see that on our posters, our flyers, and everything that we do. And we know going into this, we had a lot of concern with some of our alumni who were a little worried about, okay, is it going to look different? Is it going to be a different school? Are we going to lose all that historical value that we all know schools have? And we have assured them that that is not the case. We will continue with many of the traditions. I am very proud of the principals and the relationships that they have already built with the alumni associations, and that will absolutely continue.
And last Saturday, I got a great picture of the alumni basketball game going on at Howe. So they had a lot of fun at that game.
Yes, so that will absolutely continue as we move forward. As Sherry's mentioned, we had our kickoff celebration on July 15th. We have also, in the area of marketing and messaging, we have been putting up rack cards, posters, community team meetings, photo shoots, all kinds of things, good things going on. We are partnering, as she said, with the Health Network and with the Marion County Health Department in order to keep the clinics going at the schools. We know that that is a great benefit to the community, and as we have stressed from day one, we want to be a good partner with the community, and we will continue those. We will also continue to have our monthly community meetings, and the cool thing now with school starting is, and this is my favorite part, at the meetings, instead of just us getting up there and talking, we will be highlighting students and things happening in the schools. And I already spoke with our JROTC leaders yesterday, because they got to go to a really cool summer camp a week ago, and I've asked them to be our first highlight and show what those kids got to experience, including riding in a Black Hawk helicopter, which they promised me I get to do next year, so can't wait. Safety plan. The DOE has been very helpful with us on this. We created a safety plan. We sent it to the folks here, and they offered to work with our principals and our SROs and bring them in and go through that safety plan to ensure that everything is in order, and that was very much appreciated. One of our assistant principals came back and said that was really helpful to have that partnership with the Department of Ed and work on that plan. We have hired 3 of probably the best SROs I have ever encountered, and Officer Palmer, Cox, and Harris have already gone through all of the buildings. They are looking at every classroom and what is the best route for escape, and working with the assistant principals and folks on the safety plan as well. Looking at bus pickup, drop off, parking, all kinds of things. So safety will be a very big issue. And once we get the safety plans finalized, Gary Green has offered to come in and kind of walk through with us with the plan to make sure that we don't have any gaps.
So I think for the first day of school, a couple of things that we have done. We have brought in extra security for day one, just to ensure that everyone knows the proper procedures to make it through the day. We have brought in extra support in terms of registrars, office assistants, to make sure that those students who show up on day one, that we can actually schedule them and get them into classes immediately. And we've also hired several substitutes that will be in the building, assisting us with getting students into the right places, as well as our CSUSA support team will be here, and every school will have extra support in terms of hallway monitors and, again, just lunch monitoring, things like that, to make sure that that first day of school goes very, very successfully. Do you have any questions for us?
I just want to make a comment. Number one, some of the things they talked about, and about not having all their staff hired, et cetera. I just, being in a school district, I just want you to know, neither do we.
Thank you.
No, and Tony, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm saying a late movement, and this is one of those things where all of a sudden there's an opening, and someone lives closer to that district, and they're moving, and we have to fill those, et cetera. Reviewing safety plans, we're doing the same thing. We have our county folks come in. It's very similar to those, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the where we're headed. The one comment, Tony, you've made this comment before, and I think it's an appropriate time to do this. I appreciate you made a comment here earlier about the number of students you have plus your financing. And you are hiring in accordance to your finance. So any dollars that were necessarily withheld from Indianapolis weren't automatically going to the charters. And I think there was a misconception out there that the millions of dollars that were being withheld from IPS automatically were ending up at the charter schools.
Oh, so like it was a windfall, not invest as needed type. Yeah.
Right, and I think
never understood that.
You made that comment, and I think there's a misconception out there that any dollars that were withheld from IPS automatically went to the charter schools, and that's not the case. And I think that needs to be stated, because I hear these folks working hard at running their budgets, and help me out. Here's an example, like Manual, you're talking about 550 students, optimistically with processing. What would have been the enrollment at Manual last year?
That's interesting. Every time we were in the building, they kept telling us there were about 650.
Okay.
Honestly, on any given day, we could only find about 450, 500. So
Okay.
I'm not sure.
So what I guess I'm hearing you say, how you said, you got 365 enrolled with the idea of 200 in the process. So you're thinking, then you said the number 735. That's okay. But what was house enrollment last year? Do you know? Just curiously again.
Off the top of my head, I can't remember.
And I was just looking for a comparison. And I'm excited about the professional development, and I'll say this: Todd Whitaker is very good, and understands that, and I think your professional development. So where is most of that professional development coming? Is that coming from your staff? Are you outsourcing that, or?
No, we at CSUSA, we have an education team, and we run all of the new teacher induction.
Okay.
We also have a curriculum specialist that is on that education team that is housed here in Indianapolis. So she is supporting those 3 schools, as well as we have 2 instructional coaches that have been assigned to these schools from Teach for America.
Okay.
So there is a lot of professional development going on. Our principals attend monthly professional development sessions, and so do our assistant principals.
Okay, and you said you have 2 coaches who are also assigned to these schools for professional development of the staff.
Yes.
Okay, and I appreciate that, and I'm fortunate enough to be involved with the New Tech Network, and I'm going to tell you what, the impact of our coaches from the New Tech Network have been powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Just that their idea that they're there regularly and their communication. So I like that concept. On the professional development, it would be, and I'm not looking for an answer to this today, it just would be interesting. Your people who run the professional development, I would be curious of saying where, are they connected to someone such as, model schools, or are they connected? Are they getting resources from model schools? Are they getting resources from the Effective Schools Network, et cetera? Just out of curiosity for me.
Well, I think there's a lot of areas that we pull from in terms of those kinds of resources for our staff. But we go looking for the best and brightest educators out there and pull them onto our team to make sure that they're sharing those best practices within all of our schools. We have a pretty scripted plan from doing this a while in terms of operating schools, where we know in a year one school all of the areas that beginning teachers and new staff struggles with. So we have a pretty scripted out plan for what year one looks like in terms of professional learning communities, our TLC program, which is for our new teachers, and the dialogue around how we continue to focus on instruction in the classroom. We bring in a support team 4 times a year into these schools of principals, assistant principals within our network, master teachers, that will be supporting these schools through a quality assurance visit where they will be going in, and every teacher in one day receives a 30 to 45-minute observation. It is not an evaluation, it's an observation that's meant to be supportive and say, here are the things we're seeing that you're doing really well, and here's an area where you as a teacher can improve, and here's an area where you as a school need to do a little more focusing. So there's lots of continued professional development through multiple resources.
And the neat thing with the professional development, this was my first time of seeing what they actually do with the staff and hearing some of the feedback from the teachers that were there. They don't just get the information, they have them up, active, engaged, and the best part is the instructors are actually modeling best teaching practices for the teachers to actually take that back into their classrooms. And so many of the teachers made the comment to me, that was the coolest thing, because now we feel really armed to go into the classroom with some of these techniques. We've seen them modeled, we've practiced them ourselves, and now we feel a little more comfortable taking those into the classrooms. It was really, really neat to see.
I just had a question about assessment. I know that ISTEP is our golden rule in terms of our centerpiece. Will you be initiating any other types of testing that would give us some gauge of growth rather than just annual? Whether it's acuity or something to include in a report, so for academic gain, so that we can see that happening.
We benchmark our students 4 times a year. We will be benchmarking all of the students within the first couple of weeks of school. We will be using the CSUSA benchmark, and we do look at growth over the course of the year, as well as the final state assessment data.
So does that mean we'll get some kind of report?
You can see, we can present in our format that information. It's very important that you see baseline. So when we go into the schools, and we actually have students on Monday in those classes, that we can then begin that goal setting process. Because remember, part of what we do that is so important in our educational program is that personalized learning plan. So once the student is in the door, we benchmark them, we look at where they've been, they're doing their goal setting and their personalized learning plan, and then we're tracking up against that growth all year long.
Jim kind of led us in the whole concept of dashboarding a few years ago, and it's the same idea. We'd like to see what's on your dashboard.
Yes, absolutely.
And the students presently enrolled in courses, how did you all handle scheduling?
We are handling scheduling right now.
We have an internal system that we've used for several years in terms of building our master schedule and then scheduling individually, and then we're working with the team to do an automatic upload to Learning Connections for things like attendance and grades and things like that.
Is scheduling part of the registration process?
Yes. So students have come in, they filled out their request, we've looked at their transcript, and then we've placed appropriately. And that's part of those numbers where you were saying how numbers didn't quite make sense. That's part of that 300 students that are still processing that have to come in and sit down. Again, the enrollment events, registration events, we've hit over 200 students in one day, where they are individually sitting down with people talking about the courses, where their interests are and how they've done, so that we appropriately place those students.
Right. And moving forward, it'll look more like the traditional schools in that process instead of doing it all in the summer.
So your enrollment number reflects students that have already gone through that process?
Yes.
Okay. Good luck.
Thank you. And we had a great video so that we can, and we're bringing it over to you guys on disc so you can see it, and it just highlights all the wonderful events, the kickoff event, the summit, the NTI, and to give you a really more clear picture of the excitement that is there and the things that we've been doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the continued support.
Marcus lives in Indianapolis.
Marcus.
Good morning. Good morning. It's great to be back in the Hoosier State. Just returned from New York City where I'm doing my doctoral studies. And nothing makes you miss Indiana like New York City. And so it's great to be with you. We have, I know it. Every time I'm there, I'm very clear about my disdain. We're with Air Power. And so we've been fast at work at Arlington High School, trying to get ready to meet our students. Since we've last talked, much has gone on. We had, I thought, a very effective and smooth transition. Hats off to IPS for helping make that go as well as it can possibly go. We had a great kickoff event. Jeffrey A. Johnson, it was a local pastor here, 11,500 members in his church, Arlington High School alumni, was there to celebrate with Arlington families. Thank you to Dr. Bennett for being present for that great event. Vivica Fox, who is an actress in Hollywood and one of Indianapolis's greatest daughters, also flew in because she wanted to be a part of her high school and its resurgence. And so we were especially excited for the participation since it was 106 degrees outside that day. But we had a big barbecue out on the lawn, bounce houses for kids, registration events inside, not just about the school, but about the various community partners that are coming to the table to support the students inside the school. So we're really thrilled about what's taking place as far as that's concerned. We are working through to make sure that all of the curriculum materials are going to be in place for the students on the first day of school. We are staffed with the exception of about last count about 6 teaching positions that we're still pulling into place. Administrative team started on July the 1st with our Leadership Institute for 2 weeks, which culminated in a trip to participate in the Whole Brain Teaching Institute in Ohio. They were back, and our Teaching Institute started just last week, and all the teachers are engaged in our 9th annual Teaching Institute, where we very intentionally talk about pedagogy, we talk about planning, we talk about our systems for not just engagement, but management of classrooms and corridors. And so they are immersed in our training program to make sure that we are ready on day one to meet our students. From an enrollment standpoint, we're sitting at about 678. We have folks who are going door to door. We've hired a team of folks to go knock doors on the northeast side to talk about what's happening in the Arlington community. We're making phone calls to stay in touch with the families that have been on our list for the past 3 months to keep them updated about what's transpiring. We're having registration events so families can come in and do the scheduling process, which is a little bit arduous. In the transition, there were some glitches in terms of the transfer of records. I believe we've resolved those issues and have some great protocols in place now to be able to get transcript data back and forth for our students. Other than that, we've got some great systems in place in terms of safety and security. We've hired former deputy chief of police from IMPD to be chief of security. He's put together a great plan along with another former Hamilton County sheriff to make sure that we have the best plan in place we can for safety and security for our students. As you might know, that was a real concern for us, to make sure that the kids were first safe before we can get down to this business of learning. I think we're eons ahead of where I imagine we'd be as far as that's concerned.
Questions? When's your start date?
We've targeted the 13th to start, August 13th. It makes me nervous when I say it. I start to itch a little bit, actually.
And the 678 that you indicated you have enrolled,
Yes,
those
sir.
are registered students already, or?
Yes. So those are students who A, defaulted, or B, came into the building and signed up.
And how are you all handling scheduling?
We have a
As
team
part
of
of the
counselors
registration
who
process,
started a week and a half ago, and that team of counselors is working through to make sure every kid gets scheduled. So a lot of that we're doing by hand, even though the student information system can do it automatically. Because of report card information and transcript information and that glitch, we feel like this first year we need to hand schedule these kids to make sure that they can have the right credit accumulation to get to graduation.
And are the kids doing that as part of their registration process or
Yeah.
separately?
Well, both, actually. So as much as when we get the information, we're responding to the information.
All activities started, athletics.
Football team is practicing. Mr. Hawkins tells me that there's a game. Let me just say there's parched earth out there, and so I'm not so worried about them getting hit by other kids. I'm worried about them falling on the concrete level grass that we have growing. But fall sports are in play.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
We appreciate it. Look forward to talking to you in September.
And now we have Edison Learning, Gary Roosevelt.
Good morning. I'm Todd McIntyre with Edison Learning, Senior Vice President for Operations, and happy to tell you that school is going to open on August 15th. We still have a lot of work to do, but we are confident that we will achieve all of our goals and be ready for students to walk in the door that day. Enrollment is currently confirmed enrollments of students that we have contacted and have come to us and agreed to attend to 617. We know that there are at least 100 to 150 more students that are enrolled at Roosevelt. But because of ongoing issues with getting student records, we have not been able to determine what that additional number is as of yet.
And I'll ask the same question. What was Roosevelt's enrollment last year?
We understand that it started the year at about 1040, and by the end of the year it was under 1,000 last year. We have a fill rate of 85% of the curriculum materials that we have ordered to supplement the materials that were in the building. Technology has also been ordered and is being received to supplement the materials that were in the building. Some of the technology systems are being phased in over the first few weeks of school because certain grant funds don't become available until September 1st that are being used to purchase some of these items. So we will be starting with one set of technology, and additional items will be implemented as those funding streams become available. We have staffing that is continuing. We have a few remaining vacancies, as has been described by all the operators. The number of vacancies at this point is around 13. We have tried to balance our staffing with enrollment. We started with staffing the school up to match an enrollment of 500 students. And when we exceeded 500 in terms of indicated registration, we began to accelerate our staffing to complete that. So we feel like we're very close in balance. As is probably the case with most districts, the remaining positions are the hard to fill ones in the technical areas, science and math, and we're working aggressively. We have 2 additional job fairs going on this week and weekend. And are continuing to work with various partnerships that we have to find teachers that can fill those positions. Staff training began on July 10th, so it's a 5-week program. We run 3 to 4 days per week for the staff, and they will continue in that program right up until school starts on August 15th. We started off with leadership team, and then the whole staff has been there now for their second week. That is done about 90% by our regional and national professional development team, about 10% by external consultants. For example, yesterday, an organization called Learning Focused was there, and Learning Focused particularly has expertise in accelerating learning for students who are behind grade level. They may not be identified as having special needs, but they are in need of accelerated, and so we're using Learning Focused and their expertise to help move that along. We continue to be very happy with the level of community engagement that we've had in Gary with the parents and the community members and the local dignitaries. We've sponsored a number of events in the city, including Block Party, the 4th of July parade. The school was a title sponsor for that and generated a lot of community engagement. We have an advisory group that has now met, I believe, 4 times. We call it the Friends of TED. It is chaired by Mayor Freeman Wilson, and it has a number of key members from the community, including the head of the Chamber of Commerce, the state senator, Earlene Rogers, and a variety of other key community leaders. They have they've made a commitment to do a significant fundraising campaign for the school and set a goal of $100,000 for the short term. They are meeting on a regular basis, providing us with good advice and also providing tremendous support for the school going forward. We had assemblies last week, sort of pre-orientation, more just informational assemblies for students that were already registered. These were held in the gymnasium, which was about 95 degrees because there are some facilities issues with the building that haven't been resolved. But we had over 500 families and students that came to those assemblies to get additional information about where we are and where we go. Orientations are next week. Orientations are more formal. Uniforms will be ready to be handed out, book bags, etc. We're hopeful that we'll have student schedules at that point. I can talk more about that in a moment. We are continuing to work on a number of other community engagement opportunities. We've had ongoing meetings to reopen the health clinic, community health clinic in Roosevelt. There's not been a community health clinic in that building for several years. We've been in negotiations with Simpatico to be a partner on that and are working on grant applications at this point in order to reopen that clinic sometime this year. We have a football game scheduled for August 15th. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the opponent, but the students are practicing, and we are getting ready for that kind of community activity. That'll be very important for us. That's 2 days after school starts. Opening preparations are focused on scheduling and related issues such as transportation, getting the staff trained and ready, as I've said, and then getting the facilities ready. There are significant issues in each of these areas, and I've been advised that I should not go into substantial detail with you about those because you may have to adjudicate disputes in the future related to these. I think, as you all know, we have filed a request for an injunction in the Marion County Superior Court to force the school corporation to address a number of these issues, and that litigation is pending. We are working very diligently, had 6 hours of meetings yesterday to continue to work on those issues, and we believe we're getting closer. And we absolutely believe we'll be ready to open school on the 15th. He is. Terrence Little is the principal of the school, yes.
How are you all handling scheduling?
So I will say that we have 0 schedules completed at this point. We have not, and I want to be careful about information I share, but we do not have complete student records. We do not have transcripts. So we have not been able to do scheduling until we have transcripts. That's something we're working on. No. We are working, we believe that may be resolved today. We're working very hard to get that resolved today. and we believe we can get scheduling going very quickly. We have teams ready to roll with scheduling. We have our master schedule done. Of course,
you know what you're offering.
we know what our master
So
schedule
you're just
is.
having plug the students in
Right, of
based on
course,
their records. Okay.
Because we don't have the records, we don't know if we're going to have to juggle the master schedule. We
understand.
may need more sections of Algebra 1 than we need of Algebra 2. Right. So depending upon what the transcripts say, we have to be ready to make
So you're
those
ready to
adjustments.
plug him in. It'll be some adjusting, but you have a
We have a
scheme.
master schedule. That's been done for some time, and now we actually have to do the individual scheduling process. So in fact, I have a meeting in 1 hour when we're going to try to work on that.
You had a very aggressive marketing program.
Yes.
How did that get paid for? Is that the 100,000 that Perlene and everybody? I mean,
No, that's just
part of your-
that is paid for out of the investment that we're making into into doing this work.
Cool. Thank you.
How are you going to, how are you all planning to benchmark the students?
We have, we're doing a number of things. So baseline in reading, all the students will take the Scholastic Reading Inventory in the first 2 weeks of school. That will tell us what their basic reading level is and help us identify students that are needing level 1 or level 2 interventions right away. It'll also help us make sure that what we've done with the master schedule makes sense.
Anything in math?
Yeah, I don't know the name of it. I'm sorry, Mr. Walker. I don't know the name of the math
But
assessment.
there
There is a math assessment that's done as well. The SRI follows the students. I think they take that on a quarterly basis, so we get tracking with them on a quarterly basis. At the same time, Edison Learning has a formative assessment system called Evaluate. It is a monthly assessment, online assessment in reading and mathematics that is pegged to end-of-year standards. So this is not an assessment like a classroom assessment where you're assessing what they've done over the last week or month. This is intended to measure growth and be predictive of performance on end-of-year standards. So we will and be happy to share with you on a monthly basis performance on those assessments. I can tell you, have low expectations in the first month because we're going to be measuring students against standards that they will be learning about over the course of the year. And if we're doing our job, we see growth. It's really, though, we try not to use it for summative purposes, which would be reporting to you. We really try to use it for formative purposes, which is giving teachers data that they need to adjust their teaching on a day-to-day basis. So we're happy to share that, but we'll always give you sort of caveats about, well, this is really about their dashboard, day to day, about making adjustments as opposed to determining, whether we're making progress. But that's another one of the tools that we use.
You said you have, I think, 13 vacancies still. What percent are you fully staffed?
I'd have to work that out. It's over 80%.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Todd? Todd, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Becky just informed me we are having an issue with a video cable, and we do want to make sure that the lead partner discussions are live streamed. My suggestion, because I know David's going to have to leave at 11:30, I would propose that while we're fixing the video cable, we go on with C and D while we're fixing the video cable and then come back to the lead partner discussions. Does anyone have a problem doing that? Is it okay?
Good idea.
That's fine.
So with that, I'm going to open, and Will, you want to, or is it John Gabera? John's on his way down. Well, I need to make some opening comments about C anyway. C pertains to this document that is in front of you regarding the report card we will submit for each school under the new accountability system. And just to kind of bring us up to speed, we've had a number of discussions around what this report card should look like, what should be included on this report card. I'm sure the state board is aware that the issue of accountability has been taken up at 2 separate select commission discussions. And there has been discussion about, where growth fits in, where performance fits in, what have you. So we are bringing to you today a concept, and I want to just kind of be real clear about where my thinking is. Because this is an issue of the Select Commission, I would like to have a conversation, get input from the board regarding your thoughts on what this might look like. And I would also like to take it to some of our state legislative leaders and have the same conversation with them before we make a final decision. Because what we're talking about is potentially looking at including an, if you will, a growth grade on the report card, so that folks can see your final grade is this, your achievement looks like this, your growth looks like this. Okay? Now, I do want to bring to mind that there are pros and cons to this, and I am not advocating, I want to be real clear, I'm not advocating for either one of these positions. This is a discussion that I think is an important policy discussion, one for the issue of transparency, but I also think we have to keep in mind the issue of clarity. Because while we have the big grade, as you can see on the screen, there are some subgrades below that. The other thing I would say to you is this. As we have analyzed this, and we were very careful to not let our decisions around the accountability measures be determined by impact data. So we wanted to set the metrics and then kind of let the chips fall where they may. So we have, in this instance, as we have looked at this, we've run some data to illustrate. And if you look at the growth grades compared to the final grades that the schools are likely to get, and I want to, again, for purposes of clarity, this data still is 126 days. We still have not scrubbed the 162 day, and there's some nuances that have not been totally ironed out. But you know, these are, I'm going to say, relatively close. If you look at the growth grade to the final grade, 43%. You can see this table on the back of your chart. 43% of the schools get the same growth grade as they did their final grade. 41% are either a grade higher or a grade lower. So approximately, it's approximately 85%. It's 84.9% of our schools are either the same grade or one grade above or one grade below. So the question comes to mind is, why would you do this if 85% of your schools don't have a significant change? Okay? But there has, because we have put the emphasis on growth that we have put, there has been a question, why wouldn't we do this? And that's why this is being brought to you. So this is a discussion that I want to receive board input, and then I'm going to go to some of our other state leaders and say, you know, what are your thoughts around this before we do something? So I'm going to kind of turn it over to John and Will and let them go, and then I would ask for some pretty good discussion and questions.
Great. Well, I just up on the board you can see, and also in front of you, our latest version of the report card. This was specifically for the elementary and middle school model. As Tony mentioned, there is strong desire to make sure we are highlighting success and also issues around student growth. So you'll see that the major change here is that we've gone to the horizontal scale for the growth model. And we've also done is then what you'll see is if you look at the high growth, student growth for the bottom 25% on the English language arts, which is on the left side of your sheet. What we've put in there is a state average marker so you can judge where you are in terms of the state. Then also we have the marker for what you have to hit to receive the bonus. And then the horizontal scale is actually that school's result. So in this case, 47.1% of their bottom 25% subgroup showed high growth or hit their high growth targets that were set at the beginning of the year that every student could hit, right? 47.1% of those students hit their high growth target that was set at the beginning of the year. What that means is they eclipse the requirement of 42.5% to receive the bonus, and so they have that area shaded green, as in, boom, you won the prize, you got the bonus. So it's shaded green there. In the second column there, their top 75% subgroup, they achieved 33.8% of their students hit high growth. So they were above state average. They could see where they were compared to the state, but they were just short of the goal of 36.2. So they did not receive. They're not in the A category, if you will, or seeing the bonus. And then on the last bottom section of ELA, you'll see that overall their students, when you combine all students together, they actually had 42.1% of their students show low growth, so that is over the marker, which would incur the penalty. And on each of these, then what we did is show that if you were going to give a growth grade, that growth grade would be an A if you hit the bonus, a B if you're above state average but below the bonus, and then 3 subsequent categories below that. So in this case, this school had an A and received the bonus on their bottom 25%. Their B growth and their top 75% subgroup did not receive the bonus. And then for the overall group, they received an F in terms of growth because they had too much low growth, therefore incurred a penalty. On the right side, you'll see the math and to show variance and how this would look. For the bottom 25% subgroup, they had 41.6% of those students hit those growth targets of high growth, which would be below the marker to receive the bonus. But again, they're above state average, so they received a B growth grade, if you will. Then their top 75% group, though, did eclipse the mark and did receive the bonus, so that's why it would be highlighted on the report card. It would show, it shows highlighted if you received the bonus. And then their overall subgroup for low growth, as you see, that scale works the opposite direction. And they had only 21.7% show low growth, which would put them in the C category, but they did not incur the penalty, and they were below the state average, which is good in this case. That is the adjustment that we have today for the elementary middle school model.
John, why don't we break out what the top students are doing?
The top 25?
Don't get me started on that,
Tony.
Tony.
Should answer that one.
That was something that I really think we have to do. We did not. Part of the reason we didn't do it, frankly, was we ran a number of statistical models and it had no real impact statistically. But I think we're missing. I personally think as we look at a revision, and we did talk when I testified at the Select Commission, that this is an issue I think we should be looking at, is how our top students are getting growth, regardless of whether it has any statistical significance on the grade or not. It is a data point that we should be discussing in our schools. So Tony, we're going to continue, as my pledge is we're going to probably see some adjustments to this over the next year, much like we did when we originally set the PL 221 measurements. And I would suggest that needs to be one.
I mean, as a parent, that would be significant for me in terms of when I was looking at a school.
My question is on the low growth is this. We had a young man over here today who had a school that had consistently has 95% of his kids passing. He's going to have low growth. Is he going to get an F in low growth?
No,
if he goes from a 96 to a 94?
No, not necessarily. So I think one misconception we've been trying to help folks out in the field understand is that on the growth model for A through F only, we use the growth projection set at the beginning of the year. So every student has a fan projection that says, based on the performance of your academic peers, or the group that you're now in based on whatever grade you're in and how many years of tests we've looked at, we're going to give you a projection score for if you hit between 400 and 420, we're projecting you'd be in low growth at the end of the year. Or if you're 421 to 500, we're projecting you'd be in typical. Or if you're 500 and above, we're projecting you're in high growth. We lock those in and say these are your targets for the end of the year. And when we get the ISTEP scores at the end of the year, it's based specifically on those targets. Which means the ISTEP is not normed, it's scaled. So anyone can hit any score on the ISTEP. So every single student in your school can hit their high growth targets at the beginning of the year. So in the example you gave, they could have 100% high growth.
if they all hit their high growth targets. There's no cap on the number of kids that can hit there. Now, will they have some low growth kids? That's certainly possible too. They could have a number of kids that have low growth. But every kid, there's no cap or there's no set number that will get high, typical, or low.
So I have a question, because on Learning Connection, the students are given their color-coded dots, their green dot, yellow dot, red dot, based on their growth. I guess I've been under the misconception that you're put in your cohort group based on your previous year's scores, and then you're almost put on a bell curve, yellow, green, or red, based on how you score in terms of growth compared to your cohort group, and you're telling me that's not correct. Everybody could, in theory, be a green dot.
Yeah, so so you have the projections, those are the scores at the end of the fan that you see. There's like 4 different scores. Those are the projections that are set at the beginning of the year. So beginning of 2011, those projections were set for each student, right? Based on an assumption around how many, how they would compete against their peers. Those markers are set at the beginning of the year, and then we use those at the end of the year to determine if you hit high, typical, or low. Then we're going to run the growth model, right, after the fact, and then it will this fall norm you out based on student performance and your peer group, showing what you actually showed, right, compared to your peers. And then it'll give you another fan projection for the next year that then we will use as the targets for next year's grade in terms of trying to hit those targets.
So I'm trying to look at this from the simple reader perspective. You've got absolute performance and you've got growth performance. And I can't tell, do the A and the F on the English and language arts here factor into the grade here that factors into the grade there, or are they independent of that grade?
The marker that's on the bottom,
student growth.
It's independent of it. So the growth, as you know, goes in, but it's based on hitting the target, then it gives you 1.0 bonus.
So,
right,
so the question that David asked is, I agree, the A, B, and F, does that equal C?
No, it does not. No, it does not necessarily equal C.
Let me explain that, Mike.
Because I think that's misleading.
Yeah, if I don't know the inside baseball you just described,
right?
What I think is I got an A, I got a B, I got an F in English language arts. That gives me a C in English language arts. And I got an A and a B and a C, and that gives me an A in math. And you take the A and the C and put it together, and I got a B. And so I'm simple parent mind. I'm going to laser in on B and say Mike's got a B. And it's because the growth is included.
But I don't understand. But I don't understand how I got an A if I got a C in low growth.
Yeah.
And it's projected.
Well, now you're going even deeper than I was going. I just think your terminology, you need to tighten. If you're going to go this way, you need to be just overly patently clear about what you're doing here, because the average reader is going to get real lost real fast.
Yeah. So I mean, this is page 1, as you know, and this has levels of it. Where what we can't show here is the hover over component of it that would explain each part of it. You can click on it and then you can get to the next page.
I understand that, John, but
yeah.
you want
page
this
1.
you want the reader to be able to see everything